Thanks, Clement, and thanks to everyone who's come today as part of this postgraduate open week at the University of Birmingham. And I'm going to be discussing the MA programs in the Department of Social Policy, Sociology and Criminology. So Clement just introduced me. I'm Dr. Justin Cruikshank. I'm a specialist in social theory, and I teach on one of the core sociology modules, Transforming Societies. And you have my email on the screen there, which can be used for any questions. So we can take questions afterwards, but if there are any other questions you have after the talk that you think about, or any issues you want elaborated, please feel free to give me an email. Let's give you a second to write that down. Okay, there we go. Right, so just give a quick overview of the talk before we get going to the nitty-gritty. I want to start by talking about the department and its, in particular, its research centres and research cluster. In other words, I want to talk about its research culture and research activities of the department. And the reason for that is that as a Russell Group university, we engage in research-led teaching. So all of our teaching at undergrad level and at MA level is driven by our specialist research interests. And to show the research specialism of the department, the best way to do it is to talk about the specialist research centres and the research clusters. And every member of the academic staff is involved in one of the research centres and or one of the research clusters. After that, I want to talk about the postgraduate diploma and MA programs we have in sociology, social policy, global public policy, and social research. Then finally, I'll wrap up with some general information about the university. And after that, we can have a Q&A session. So research in the department then, there are 3 research centres. These are IRIS, the Institute for Research into Superdiversity, the Third Sector Research Centre, things like the charity organisations, and CHASM, the Centre for Household Assets and Savings Management. But let's say a word about what research centres are. So research centres are centres of research excellence, and they are a cluster of academics, PhD students, and research assistants who are engaged in grant-funded, prestigious grant-funded research, a lot of which can then be involved in what's called impact case studies, where the research they generate is taken on board by public sector organisations or discussed by government agents and so forth. All of these research centres run research seminars, and those research seminars are open to all postgraduate students. So even if you're not doing a course that's related to one of these research centres by one of the staff, all these staff in these centres teach on different aspects of the MA programs. But even if you're not doing something specifically connected to these, it's very interesting to go along because they have some very interesting internal and external speakers. And all postgraduates, like I say, are encouraged to go to research seminars. And the research seminars are an interesting place to just learn a lot more about what's going on in sociology and social policy, which may be of use when it comes to thinking about your dissertation. In addition to the research centres, there are research clusters, and every member of the academic staff is a member of one of these research clusters. So we have social theory and transformation, which focuses on some aspects of classical theory, but primarily on contemporary social theory, and specifically how social theory conceptualizes the major transformations concerning the self, identity, institutions, inequality, and the role of government. Then we have poverty, wealth and inequality, migration, diversity and religion, civil society and volunteering, and crime and social harm. Crime and social harm is quite connected to social theory because the criminology we do here is very much sociologically informed and theoretically informed critical social policy. And all of these research clusters also have a wide variety of interesting speakers that come and give talks to the department, and that's open to all postgraduate students. So the programs we have available are the MA in Sociology, the MA in Social Policy, Postgraduate Diploma or MA in Migration Studies, Postgraduate Diploma or MA in Global Public Policy with an option for a placement pathway, and the MA in Social Research, which is ESRC recognised. I'll just say a word or two about what that means. The ESRC is the Economic and Social Research Council, and that's the funding body that provides the funds for research and grant funding and postgraduate funding, PhD funding in the social sciences, including sociology, social policy, and criminology. And having the MA in social research being recognised by the ESRC means two things. Firstly, it means that students applying to do that can apply for ESRC funding. So a grant is available to cover the fees and living costs for the MA in social research from the ESRC. It's quite competitive, but it means that an ESRC funded route is available, and for that applicants would have to apply directly to the ESRC. The other point is that having it ESRC recognised means that it's been kite marked for quality. It means it's a high quality, professional level postgraduate course in research methods. The MA in social research provides modules that PhD students undertake for their research training when they're doing their research projects or their PhD, but also people could do the MA in social research if they want to get a job in the public or private sector, where they will be engaging in some form of research activity that could use qualitative or quantitative analysis. And in applying for those jobs, someone who's done that master's can say that they have done a kite mark, so high quality professional level MA that trains people in statistical and qualitative research methods. So let's talk a bit about the structure of the PGDIP and MA programs. The way it works is that with postgraduate diploma and master's programs, everyone does taught courses in classroom-based courses in semester 1, which goes from end of September, early October, up until Christmas, early January, and semester 2, which runs from January to Easter. You'll do a total, normally you'll do a total of 6 modules, 6 classes. There'll be usually 2 core modules that you have to do and 4 optional modules. And the assessment can vary slightly depending on which module you're studying, but generally speaking, outside the MA in social research, which has smaller modules and therefore more assessments, you would do 1 essay per module, which means that you do 2 essays for the core modules and 4 essays for the option modules. People doing those modules will have a formative essay and a summative essay. And that basically means that halfway through the module, halfway through the course, you would have a practice essay and get feedback from the tutor. And then when the classroom work stops, you have some time to prepare your summative essay, which is the one that generates the final mark for that module. So the general structure then is on postgraduate diploma and master's programs. You do usually about 3 modules before Christmas, 3 after Christmas. That means having 3 essays due just after Christmas and 3 essays due just after Easter. And the essay usually carries 100% of the mark for that particular module, but you also get a chance to do a practice or formative essay halfway through. I say it's usually 3 and 3, 3 before Christmas and 3 after, but it depends on the options you choose. So it could be the case that you could do 4 courses, 4 modules before Christmas and 2 after, depending on when the optional module you wanted to do was running. But generally, most people do 3 before Christmas and 3 after. But it's up to you. If you really wanted to do a course, an optional course, and it happened to run when you're already doing the chosen 3 courses, you could still do that and then do 2 modules the following semester. So that's for the postgraduate diploma and MA programs. For the MA programs only, students carry on to work on a dissertation. So diploma and master students, all of them do the taught work in the classroom, the modules, and then that's where the PGDIP, the postgraduate diploma, ends. The MA program, MA students' work continues from Easter until September, where students write and prepare a 10,000 word dissertation. So full-time, this takes one year, 12 months, so roughly September to September, and part-time, it can be done over 2 years. So let's go through the modules then, the programs. For the MA in Sociology, there are 3 core modules. So there are 2 taught core modules, which are transforming societies and transforming identities, and the dissertation itself counts as a module. So between September and Easter, there'll be 2 core modules, transforming societies, transforming identities, then the dissertation, which is compulsory for MA students, not for diploma students, but just for MA students. Transforming societies takes a look at the macro level about what large-scale structural historical processes are changing societies in terms of inequalities, identities, power structures, and other forms of social dynamic affecting work and politics. Transforming identities is more based on the micro level of the self, and the dissertation can be any topic that you want to write about that's related to the MA in Sociology. So the dissertation is your research project to develop your own ideas, working with an allocated supervisor over the summer to develop a 10,000 word dissertation. And as I say, that can be any topic that's related to sociology that interests you, it's your research project. And that's true of all the dissertations. For the MA in Social Policy, the core modules are philosophies of welfare. So that basically means what outlooks about how society ought to run actually inform welfare policy. Is it the state, basically that means, is it the state's job to provide a safety net, or should the state put more emphasis on making individuals responsible for their own fate, and how these different outlooks play out in how policy has been changed, welfare policy has changed in recent decades. Poverty, wealth and inequality looks at how the distribution of income, distribution of wealth has changed in the last few decades, and how maybe that's becoming more polarized and increasing economic inequality. And then there's the dissertation. And again, that's down to the student to choose a topic that's of interest to them and work with their allocated supervisor over summer on their 10,000 word research project. Then we have the MA postgraduate diploma and postgraduate certificate in migration studies, and that's provided by IRIS, the research centre I mentioned at the start of the talk. 3 core modules on this: migration, superdiversity, and policy and practice, globalisation, integration, migration, and international citizenship. So this is looking at issues about global population flows and how countries and states, and cities can be entering a phase of superdiversity, where it's not just a question of different groups, the old sociological question of different groups entering society and becoming incorporated, but societies entering a phase of superdiversity marked by plurality, and how that informs policy and practice. And then globalization, integration, migration, international citizenship, we'll be looking at political questions concerning how the population flows are politically and legally regulated. And then finally, there's the dissertation, which would just be for the MA students on migration studies. Diploma certificate students don't do the dissertation. So here we go then for the time period for the migration studies courses. The MA, this is full-time, would be 12 months. So semesters 1 and 2, you do the core and optional modules, and then the dissertation over the summer. And the fee for that is £10,170 for domestic students. For the postgraduate diploma, you would be here for 9 months doing semesters 1 and 2, but not doing the dissertation. And that's £6,780 full time, UK students. And for the PG cert, that's just 6 months. So basically just do semester 1 and then just do 1 essay for each module. So you do 3 essays in total for that. It's £3,390. Global public policy is available as a postgraduate diploma and an MA, and it's also available with a placement pathway. The core modules on this are policy futures, theories and concepts in international policy making, global public policy, institutions and networks, and the dissertation. So public policy is broader than social policy. Social policy concerns how government creates policies that relate to welfare and issues of well-being, social justice. Public policy includes social policy, but it's much broader than that. And it means any form of government legislation, any form of policies government creates to regulate, change, adapt the public sphere, meaning the sphere of work and charities and immigration and so forth. And this MA is looking at that at a global comparative, from a global comparative perspective. So students on this will do, all students on this will do policy futures and global public policy, institutions and networks. The students doing the MA will then continue on to the dissertation. So those doing the diploma will just do policy futures and global public policy, those two modules. MA students will carry on and do the dissertation, which again can be on any topic that the student finds interesting. They'll be guided over that during the summer by their allocated supervisor. So there are placement pathway options, and this means that the MA full-time would be 21 months, which would have 20 weeks in a placement with a local employer or public sector organisation, such as local government or a charity or a private company. For students on the PG DIP, a pathway is also a placement pathway with an employer and external organisation. It's also possible, and that's 9 months long with 8 weeks on the placement. So onto the MA social research now, the master's that's kite marked for its quality in research methods training by the ESRC. The structure is a little bit more complicated, and that's because the courses are smaller. So rather than doing 3 courses that run over a whole semester, a lot of the courses tend to run for half a semester. So the courses are smaller, and therefore you do more of them. It doesn't mean to say that you've got to do a lot more than other MA students. You're doing the same amount of work. It just means that the actual modules tend to be smaller because they're more specialized. So on this one, there are 5 core modules and 2 optional. You have philosophy of social science research, which enters debates about whether sociology or social research should be more scientific, more quantitative, or more qualitative. If it should be more scientific, what sorts of questions does that throw up? What sort of questions arise from that? How would you define science? Should it be a question of mixing quantitative and qualitative approaches? Because it should be focused on the research problem rather than focusing on the research tool, whether it's a more scientific approach or a more qualitative approach. How should we define social reality? Should it be in terms of individuals or social forces or some sort of combination of the two? And how that impacts on the research methods and the research questions and the research framing that researchers undertake. Research design, practice and ethics gets into the nitty-gritty of how you set about constructing a research project. Foundations in qualitative research guides students through the fundamentals of ethnographic qualitative research. Fundamentals in quantitative research methods guide students through the fundamentals of SPSS statistical research. And then there's the dissertation, 10,000 word dissertation, which again is based on students' interests. And in this case, should be a qualitative or quantitative project, or one that uses both qualitative or quantitative research methods. So whereas dissertations on the other programs can be desk-based or theoretical-based discussions, literature-based discussions, the dissertation for the MA social research would be one where the students engage in primary research and use qualitative or quantitative methods, or a mix of both, in building up their dissertation and working on their research question. So some examples of option modules. Depending on, not all of these will necessarily run every year, because if the staff that teach on them are on sabbatical, one may not run in a particular year or particular semester. But a lot of teaching is team taught, so usually most of these, or possibly all of them, will be running. But bear in mind that when you come, one option module may not be running for that reason. But as I say, usually I'd say all of them should be running, but there might be a case of one might not be running in a particular year. And you have got a wide range of option modules here. There's globalization, international migration and citizenship, crime and social harm, which is quite a sociological approach, a critical sociological approach to issues of crime, gendering, migration and diaspora, philosophies of welfare, creating new societies, what types of social policy are shaping inequalities, and how is that leading to a reforming of social structures and social identities and social class formations. Sociology of race and racism, changing attitudes to social issues, tracking how the public's attitude towards particular issues, controversial issues, is changing over time, and policy evaluation. How do we set about analysing whether public policy and social policy have been successfully implemented or not, and what were the criteria for successfully implementing and evaluating them? Fees, not including global public policy, are 10,170 full-time for home students and 21,960 full-time per year for international students. Fees for global public policy are, for UK full-time students, 10,170. For global public policy with integrated placement, it's 8,100 in year one and 4,000, my screen here, £4,050 in year two. Postgrad diploma with integrated placement is 6,780, and for international students, those fees would be respectively 22,950, 19,020 in year one, 9,510 in year two, and 15,300 for the PG dip with integrated placement. Student loans for UK students are up to £11,836 are available for those studying master's courses. And for more information, you can see the government websites. I'll put the link in there. So I'll just pause for a moment to give you a chance to take a screenshot or to write it down. Or you can just type in master's loan eligibility into Google or your preferred search engine. Okay, moving on. The University of Birmingham has its own master's scholarship scheme, and this is across the university. 200 scholarships are available across the University of Birmingham in all subjects, and that's worth a total value of £2,000 to each applicant. The closing date for these is the 30th of April. The criteria are a good first degree, which basically means a first class degree or a high 2-1, registered as a home student, self-funding, but that can include a government loan that we talked about a minute ago, and that you are registered as applying for an MA. So you would need to apply before April. The postgrad admissions team can get a lot of applications. So to show that you're registered as applying for a master's, I would definitely apply early mid-March at the latest to make sure you've got an offer, and then to put your application in for the master's scholarship scheme. So if you're thinking about it and you're thinking about applying and you're thinking about applying for a scholarship, I'd get the application in early, and then you can show that you are registered as an applicant here, and then you can apply for the scholarship. There are a range of international scholarships for students, and the university has these listed on their website. There's quite a lot to go through. We'll be here quite a long time, and all of them are open to students in social sciences. Some of them are more specialised. So I'll pause again. They take a screenshot of that. But basically, it's if you went into International Students Finance Scholarships or Birmingham University International Scholarships on Google, it should pull up the page. Right, closing dates for applications. These are not set in stone, but I would treat these as absolute dates because admissions can get quite busy, and that means there might be some delays in the system. For home students, I would say that the 8th of September is the latest you want to get the application in. That's assuming you weren't applying for University of Birmingham scholarship, given its earlier deadline. And for international students, the 3rd of July really is the cutoff to be safe, to make sure that the application gets processed in time. People who apply later and have the visa paperwork sorted out later can start after the course has started, but it just makes things a bit more difficult. So I'll treat these as the absolute deadlines for applying: 8th of September home students and 3rd of July for international students. So just to close up with some general comments about the university. The University of Birmingham is a founding member of the Russell Group, which is the group of research-intensive universities in the UK that are basically seen as the elite universities. As with all elite Russell Group universities, 40% of our student, or more than 40% of our student population are international and come from around the world. Our professional and academic skills development will make you a highly desirable graduate. We have of excellent career service and kite mark professionally recognised social research methods. The University of Birmingham is the second most targeted university by top employers, and it's in the top 5 graduate prospects. And finally, we have this beautiful 250-acre campus centred around this Green Heart project. So the campus was revamped a few years ago to make it a much more green and pleasant campus here in Birmingham. So thanks for coming today. Now, happy to take any questions.